And it appears that we are live. Welcome to this 105th edition of Dark Lord of Optics Live, a show that I modestly named after me, the Dark Lord of Optics. Today we'll talk a little bit about thermals. I do live stream dedicated to electro-optics once in a blue moon. And this one was really not my idea. Aaron of Anarchy Outdoors keeps on asking me questions about thermals. I basically got sick and tired of answering all his questions. I figured, let's do a live stream. You can ask all your questions. You have 2 hours. We'll do it in real time. We'll do it with an audience. And let's see if we can figure this out. Aaron, being from Utah, is a little bit squeamish and shy and quiet. You guys all know he thought he needed support. So for support, he brought his brother-in-law Hayden with him. He thinks if it's 2 of them, they will have a better chance in this conversation. So I'm going to bring them on screen. They're both here. Scott Parks might join us a little bit later. I'm not sure. He had a busy day, but he knows a lot about thermals. So it would be good to have him here. Oh, no, man. He thought it was tomorrow night. So maybe Scott is not joining us after all. He will just have to make up for it in some other ways. But anyhow, so Aaron and Hayden. Aaron's been here before, Hayden hasn't. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and tell me if my understanding what you're looking for is correct. You are in the market for some thermals, riflescopes, or clip-ons. When I say thermals, I don't mean thermal underwear, although Utah in the winter might be useful too.
It's cold outside.
And you have questions on how to choose what to look for, what's real and what's not. Is that about right?
Pretty much.
Excellent. All right. How about you guys give us a little bit of background on the 2 of you, for those who have not seen the show and Aaron before, and then just let's get rolling. And for those watching, again, if anything comes up, any questions related to electro-optics, I'll put them in the chat. If you have a question on anything else optical, put it in the chat, but I will address it a little bit later after we cover the thermal topic thoroughly. Okay. All right, gentlemen. Who the hell are you?
Well, I have been here before, and so has Hayden once. He did the sniper match review with us.
Oh, that's right, he did.
So Hayden, this is his 2nd appearance on here, but he's my brother-in-law. I am Aaron with Anarchy Outdoors, founder and not funny sidekick of Ilya when he does random live streams. So I try and bring the humor, but I'm not very good at it. So that's a little bit about me.
Neither am I just have more confidence.
Yeah, I'm Hayden. I'm Aaron's brother-in-law. I'm just along for the ride today, apparently. Let's give him some emotional support.
Okay, so let's
emotional support brother-in-law. Okay.
Let's give some context to that. Hayden and I are both beginning to shop the thermal market. And, there's a lot of options and a lot of different things and a lot of misinformation out there. So we came to the source of sources to kind of just chat through, different layers and economics and what do you look for? How do you get the best value? Different things like that. So that's what we're here to talk about.
Well, I've come prepared. I brought a few thermal devices with me. Leica Colornox 2 sight with a laser rangefinder. Arma sight operator 640. Steiner C35 Gen 2 without batteries. They're charging right here. And I also have a 3rd generation Athlon Chronos ATS thermal. I know there are a few more thermal scopes somewhere in my garage, but I could not find them in time, so these will have to do. All right. The floor is yours. What do you want to know?
I guess the biggest, dedicated scope versus clip-on. What are the benefits of each?
It depends on who you ask and depends on what you want to do. Generally speaking, at least for hunting applications, dedicated scopes outsell. Oh wow, is it badly formatted? But dedicated scopes outsell clip-ons by a ratio of about 9 to 1, right? So if you But 85-90% of thermal devices sold to hunters are dedicated scopes. Clip-ons start becoming more popular when you get into the tactical stuff. And a lot depends on how you look at this, right? So personally, what I have brought with me, there are 3 clip-ons and 1 dedicated rifle scope. There's a reason for it. I do prefer clip-ons. But it's not necessarily for a very good reason. So let's kick it back a little bit. So what do you want to do with this? What is your purpose for a thermal device?
For me, mostly, coyote hunting, just predator hunting.
Okay. So you will, if you want to have a dedicated rifle set up for a thermal optic, a thermal rifle scope oftentimes will be a easier, better way to go for several reasons. If you are looking to have a coyote rifle with a day optic that you already use and you just want to use that gun, then you can add a clip-on to it. There is when talking about thermal devices, they are basically cameras, right? So when you are dealing with a camera versus an analog device like a conventional rifle scope, you think of the field of view and resolution a little bit differently. On the front of all of these, let's take the Leica a moment, right? So if you look at the Leica, it's a clip-on. On the back, this is the eyepiece. This is the thing that is pointing toward the rifle scope, or you can use it, for scanning. And on the front, usually some sort of a shiny, opaque lens. That is the objective, right? So that is where it takes in thermal light. There is a lens, usually made out of germanium, although there are a few other options. Behind it, there is an image sensor, right? It's basically the same type of thing as what you have in your cell phone, except it is designed to look at infrared radiation rather than visible light. And these are almost always, there is only one exception, in commercially available inexpensive thermals. When I say inexpensive, I'm saying less than $20,000. Okay, they are almost always fixed power, meaning it's a fixed field of view, fixed focal length lens. When you look at the specs of a different thermal device, it will say 35 millimeter, and it will say something like 640 by 480 or 640 by 512 or 320 by 240, something like that. The first number, the 35 or 50, these are the 2 most common ones, is the focal length of the lens. Okay? If you do any photography, that works exactly the same way. Shorter focal length will give you a wider field of view, but you will lose resolution at distance. Okay? Let's say I have a 35 millimeter lens, meaning 35 millimeter focal length, and I have a 640 by 480 sensor behind it. That means that sensor has 640 pixels horizontally, 480 vertically. It's something called VGA resolution. Okay, it's less than a megapixel. Okay, by the standards of modern conventional cameras, it's very low resolution. So what's going to happen is that you cannot count on a very high resolution sensor like you do with your cell phone to reach far out there. There's only so much you can zoom in and crop because you're just zooming in on the center pixels. Okay. A lot of the coyote hunting, at least from what I've seen, I'm not a super experienced coyote hunter, I have more mileage with pigs, you need to shoot relatively far away. Okay. I don't know how it works in Utah, but usually coyote hunters will come up and go, oh, I'm going to be shooting out to 450 yards, maybe further. Okay. If you're going to be shooting relatively far away, you need a longer focal length lens. Okay. Is it all making sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So with conventional...
So right there, you said the most popular ones are 35 millimeter and 50. Why would you go with I'm looking at, so that list I sent you in WhatsApp, Ilya, if you click on the picture, it's way better formatted than what I put in the text. I'm just looking some of these have 25s and 19s. I'm guessing those are a little smaller clip-ons for LPVOs.
ADM, okay, I see it, yeah.
So why would you go with a 35 or why would you go with a 50 since those are the 2 most popular ones?
So 35 is going to give you a wider field of view. So if you're going to be shooting at something at relatively moderate distances or something that might be moving, anything like that, wider field of view is your friend. But if you're shooting fairly far away, you want narrow field of view, which gives you better resolution of distant objects. Within electro-optics, we talk about something called DRI framework. DRI stands for detection, recognition, identification. Okay. The nice thing about thermal devices is that just to detect that there is something out there, 1 pixel is enough. You'll see a warm spot. It's not supposed to be there. If it's an animal, it might be moving, something like that. So the detection distance is basically what 1 pixel can see or further. Okay. Recognition is where the object is closer and you have enough pixels on the target to be able to tell, for example, that if it's a bipedal animal or a quadruped.
Okay.
Right? And identification is when this object, the animal, whatever you're looking at, is close enough where there's enough pixels on the target. There's even a thermal company called Pixels on Target for that exact reason, right? When the animal's close enough where you can tell a difference between, for example, a dog and a hog and a cow and a deer. Now, you still might not be able to tell the difference between a dog and a coyote, right? Half the time you can't tell the difference just looking at them. But, Mr. Bullets for Bucks is here. Howdy, sir. Where was I? Yeah. So there was something called the Johnson criteria developed at Night Vision Labs quite a few years ago by a guy last name Johnson, who basically working with older analog night vision devices kind of worked out what roughly in terms of pixels or line pairs, whichever way you want to do it, what you need to figure out what is what. And I try to translate it into what it means for thermals. And I basically and then spend a lot of time sitting in the blind in Texas looking at cows, pigs, and deer and all that to roughly confirm. And it's a little bit wishy-washy, but you can roughly say that if you get 14 pixels on a target, you can say surprisingly well what kind of an animal it is, or at least you can tell the difference between a pig and a deer and a cow and a dog. So from there, I'm going to share an Excel that I put together. It's not exhaustive. I have a bunch of stuff I need to add to it. But from there, I basically try to compute how far away with thermals of different resolution and different lens focal lengths you get 14 pixels on an animal the size of a hog. Basically 14 pixels in something roughly the length of roughly 5 foot long. That's a big hog, but you have to choose something.
I went to a comedy show last night where he picked chickens. How many chickens can you put in a horse? It was an interesting.
Is the horse fighting back or not?
No, it's just an empty horse. How many chickens can you stick in an empty horse?
Because if the horse is fighting back, it's pretty freaking tricky.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So let's see. There we go. So here are some interesting things, right? So I said maximum targeting distance. I've got this field here, okay, that calculates for these parameters of an optic. At what distance do you have 14 pixels subtending a 5-foot target? Okay. And here's an interesting thing. You asked about a 25 millimeter lens, right? Mm-hmm. So here is one of the 25 millimeter ones I tested at some point was this iRay RH25. It's a really excellent optic. It's a 25 millimeter lens, nice detector with 12 micron pixels. We'll talk about pixel size momentarily. Okay, so you get good recognition of where the hog is at about 240 to 150 yards. You might be able to stretch it a little bit further, a little bit shorter, depending on the size of the animal and all that, but that's pretty much where you are, right? But look at the field of view, right? I've got horizontal field of view in degrees and vertical field of view. Let's look at horizontal field of view. Horizontal field of view of this thing is 17.6 degrees. If degrees don't make a ton of sense to you, up top here I have couple of low power variables with their field of view in degrees on different magnifications, right? So 17 degrees is pretty close to somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5x magnification equivalent with a day optic. Okay. Does that make some sort of sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
So I have a, because nobody thinks in degrees. Oh, I do. You guys don't. What I did in the top left, you see this little table. It's a field of view for 3 different low power variables, angular field of view at different magnification, 1, 2, etc. So these 25 millimeter focal length optic with a 640 by 480 sensor has a pretty decent resolution, and the field of view is equivalent to roughly 1.2 or 1.5x day optic. So if you are trying to find something, wide field of view will help you detect it earlier. And if it may be something moving, or if you're doing something tactical, you don't need to reach very far away. You need to shoot something either small and maneuverable or large and unpleasant, etc. You want wider field of view. You don't care if you can figure out where the chest of the animal is at 500 yards.
Okay.
Wider field of view means shorter focal length lens.
Okay.
Okay. Hayden, you with me?
Gotcha.
Okay. So shooting coyotes, which is what Hayden seems to want to do, is usually you're looking a little bit further out, at least from what I've seen. I don't know, maybe you can call them in close, but most of the people I know who've been shooting coyotes at night off the tripod are doing it from a distance.
Yeah, typically it's 400 to 800 meters or yards.
So Bulletful Box says he's got a thermal from Rick's and a 384. I hope you didn't pay for it. I hope they sent it to you for free, because you shouldn't pay for that.
Ooh, got the truth hammer out.
No. So Rick's is just IRA. After there was an attempt to ban Chinese thermal manufacturers, IRA, rather than marketing their own stuff under the IRA name, they have Rick's and Knockpicks, which are just relabeled IRA thermals. They're perfectly decent. Rigs pissed me off. They did this idiotic thing. They put in a zoom lens into the eyepiece so you can zoom in on the screen a little bit more. And they are trying to convince the gullible population that this is true optical zoom, which is just garbage, basically. It is a, what's the nice way of saying this? I'll just go with that garbage. It's a shameless attempt to confuse people who've never worked with the electro-optics.
Look at that. Bulletful Box is rolling up the list.
Goyojo, DNT, couple others. There you go. Mr. Bulletful Box is well equipped with thermals. Very nice. So we should ask him which one of them he likes the most. Okay. All righty. So where was I? Yeah, focal length and number of pixels. So before we get off of that, I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. One of the very important fields for this is, there we go. This is a little bigger. Okay, is pixel pitch. This column. Okay. Pixel pitch in microns. The most common of the nicer ones right now is 12 microns. Before that was 17. Before that it was 25, etc. So the combination of the focal length of the lens and the size of the pixel, right? 12 microns, pixels are roughly square, and 12 microns is just the length of that little square. That defines how small of a thing you can resolve. Okay. If you have a 35 millimeter lens, and you put that same lens in front of a 12 micron pixel versus 17 micron pixel, 12 micron pixel will be able to resolve a smaller thing. So, for example, this causes a little bit of a miscommunication in this whole field. Let's say you have a 35 millimeter focal length lens, right? And you put it in front of a sensor that Bulletful Box calls a 384. Okay, 384 means it's a 384 by 286, 384 pixels horizontally, 286 vertically. right? And it has, let's say, 12 micron pixel pitch. If you then put the same lens in front of a sensor with more pixels, 640 by 512, did you increase your resolution? Same lens, same pixel pitch, pixel size, more pixels versus less pixels. Did you increase your resolution?
With the pixel pitch being 12 versus 17?
No, both have the same pixel pitch, 12 microns.
I'd say your resolution's about the same, or would be the same, but you can see just more pixels.
Exactly right. So you did not change your resolution. It's kind of a wordplay here. You are using a higher resolution sensor, but you didn't change the lens. Your resolution, your ability to resolve small things did not change. You're seeing more pixels, so your field of view got wider, right? But your resolution did not change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mr. Bullets for Bucks is saying an interesting thing, and we're going to get to that in a moment. He's got a Arma sight, which is Contractor 320, and the image is worse than the RIX 384. Yes, that is true, but there is more to it. Okay. Okay. So, on the other hand, let's say you have a device which is with a 384 sensor, 384 by 286 pixels, right? With a 17 micron pixel pitch. Oh, Coop's here. I'm going to let him in.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Been texting Coop. So.
All right. Okay. Hey, Coop. But anyhow, where was I? Yeah. So if you have a low resolution, a 384 device with 17 micron pixel versus a 640 device, meaning more pixel with 12 micron pixels. You put them behind the same lens. Field of view is almost the same. One has fewer pixels but larger pixels. Another one has more pixels but smaller ones. But now the resolution has improved. Your angular resolution, how far you can see small things, has gotten better because your pixel got smaller. You with me? All right. I remember the beard.
He's currently at Antelope Camp.
All right, let's see. Let's make him a little bigger. All right. Where's the Antelope Camp?
Colorado. Lamar, Colorado.
You're driving south and get to Albuquerque. That's where I live. We have antelope here.
Very nice.
You're in between us and Ilya. So
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're out here to shoot some antelope and some coyotes. So we got in a couple hours later than expected, and for some reason I was thinking West Coast time and not Mountain time. So sorry about that.
Oh, now we're here hanging out for an hour and a half or two, so we're good. Ilya, let him introduce himself.
That sounds like a good plan. So, Coop, I'm not going to disclose your real name because nobody's supposed to know that. Please tell us who you are.
So my name's Coop. I run Hunting Carolinas, which is a guide service, as well as I do content stuff. I mainly do hog and coyote hunts, nighttime, thermals and night vision. I also am president and co-founder of The Reason Outdoors, which is a nonprofit taking veterans and first responders and their kids hunting and fishing, or ecotherapy adventures, as we call it. And with both organizations, there's a little bit of bleed over, but we do a lot of nighttime predator hunting and hog hunting.
That's awesome. So for those who don't know, that match that Aaron had and I shot in Montana back in August, that was a charity match for Reason Outdoors. So that's where I met Coop and a bunch of other interesting people. All right, so where we were.
So the reason we invited Coop is because we're talking about thermals. Hayden and I are coming up to speed. We're in the market. We're looking to buy. Coop has a massive amount of real world experience hunting coyotes and pigs. So as Ilya talks through this, Coop can give real life experience on things and feel free to speak up and to give your input. That's why we invited you. So
Absolutely.
Okay. So what we did so far, I'm just basically trying to make sense of the specs, right? The focal length versus pixel count versus pixel pitch, right? Pixel pitch being the size of the pixel, 12 versus 17 microns. There used to be 25 micron pixel devices. Now they basically barely exist. The most common stuff is going to be either 12 or 17 microns, and all the more recent stuff is 12. There are some 10 and 8 micron pixel pitch sensors out there. I have not really seen them very much in sporting optics yet, at least not for civilian use. And I have some reservations on whether going that low for thermal imaging is really a good idea, but that's a discussion for another day. So to recap where we are, if you're trying to shoot fairly far away, you want a longer focal length lens and you want a small pixel. You will give up some field of view with a longer focal length lens, but your ability to resolve relatively small animals, coyotes, at a longer distance will greatly improve. If you're trying to do fast things, if you're trying to find something, you need the wide field of view, you will sacrifice long-range precision. Okay, I'm not saying accuracy is on your gun, but your ability to see the target precisely at longer distances will be sacrificed if you go with a wide field of view thermal optic. Does that all sound about right?
Sounds about right.
Excellent. We'll go with a yes. So, Aaron, you keep on putting the reason outdoors there, but you're sending it in as a private message.
All right.
I'm going to resend that. So, there we go. And Aaron, in your mute, I can't hear you.
Sorry, for being the IT guy, I can't figure it out. I was trying to send a public message, and I did exactly what you did, and it worked. Like, I don't freaking know. No, I spelled it wrong. I put 2 I's in it. Sorry.
What did you do?
I think I put 2 I's in public. So it's all good.
Okay.
Carry on.
All right. Excellent. So that's the organization Coop started. Okay. Where were we? Yeah. And there's one interesting question, Coop. I wonder what you think. The first question Hayden asked on a choice between a dedicated thermal optic, something like this, versus a clip-on, something like this. What is your stance?
I'm going to go with a dedicated weapon-mounted thermal every time because I know that I check my zeros religiously. I don't like to take optics on and off guns and risk it being off at all. Zero my guns all the time. Very anal retentive about it. I've had too much. When I started in the thermal game, it was in the military. We had clip-on thermals. They were notoriously finicky. And even on the civilian side of the house, I actually have a clip-on thermal right now that I brought here to Pronghorn Camp that is the first one I've ever had that will stay true without zeroing the day scope on it. On every gun I put it on, and I put it on a 6mm Creedmoor 44 mag. I put it on an air rifle. I've not had to adjust zero at all. And this is the first clip-on that's done that. I just don't like running that risk. I would rather just have a dedicated thermal weapon-mounted scope, to the point where when I travel, I bring my predator hunting gear with me everywhere I go, I will always have a predator rig. Just so happens on this trip that I had to bring some AR uppers with dedicated thermals on them for our warriors to hunt with. So I ran out of room and I couldn't bring my dedicated coyote rig. So I brought my clip-on for my 6mm. So I'm going to give it a try. But I prefer the weapons mounted just because of consistency. And that just gives me more of a warm and fuzzy, if that makes sense.
Oh, interesting. So you're telling me you were pulling clip-ons off and putting them back on, and your point of impact was shifting?
Correct. So,
interesting. If they're built correctly, it's not supposed to happen.
It's not
I'm very
supposed to.
curious.
It's not supposed to happen, but I think what most people fail to understand is that technology always fails. So
Well,
and a lot of these clip-ons depend, what scope height, or what size rings do you have on your day gun? Are they high rings, medium rings, low rings? When you clip the thermal onto the pick rail, where does the thermal sit? Sometimes they're offset, and when they're offset, especially when they're offset, when the scope is lower than the thermal, you're going to have impact shift that you're going to need to adjust
correct.
for.
You need
In
correct.
my
You need
experience,
to be on axis. Yeah.
So
correct.
I've seen a lot of clip-on thermals that just mount directly to the front of the scope as opposed to being on a pick rail.
Mm-hmm.
How do those come into the equation there?
So I don't like those. Europeans like doing it because they're not allowed Picatinny rails and stuff. For example, this Steiner clip-on, the way they made it, it was only designed to go on an objective of a rifle scope, which in the US people don't like for a reason. I actually had somebody make this Picatinny mount for that because the way they designed it, you couldn't put it underneath. There was not enough space. So this is really interesting. Generally speaking, once a clip-on is properly adjusted for a day optic, shifting it around is not supposed to shift your point of impact. Okay, when you pull it off, when you put it back on, etc., if it is properly done, it's really not supposed to, because all it is it's a unity translation device. If it is shifting, something weird is happening, and honestly, I don't fully understand what, unless they screwed something up and it's not a true one power device. What one power means with optics, unity magnification or 1x, what it basically means is that, let's say we'll take this one, right? So this is the objective. It's looking out to the world using this. There's certain field of view that it sees, okay? The field of view that it spits out toward the day optic has to be exactly the same. That means unity. And magnification of an optic is a ratio of field of view coming out to field of view going in. That's it, right? That field of view can be narrow or can be wider. 1x does not mean certain field of view. It just means field of view going in and field of view going out are the same. That's it, right? It's the same for any afocal device, thermal, day optics, anything. It's all about the same. Once, if the field of view going in and coming out are the same, and they are on the same optical axis, meaning coming in on this line, coming out on this line, should make no difference. You could put it at an angle, your point of impact is still going to be the same. So it should be completely agnostic of mounting and all that. And I've tested that, for example, with the Steiner, when I'm screwing around with it, and with the Leica and quite a few others, and it works. As it should. That's what the science tells us it's supposed to be doing. So if it is doing something weird, I'm a little bit of a loss unless the manufacturer of the clip-on screwed something up and it's not true unity magnification. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think too, another reason is that adding having a scope on the gun, then putting a clip-on in front of it just makes the whole entire rig heavier, as well as when you're going in and out of vehicles all night, or you've got a gun on a tripod and you're skulking around, especially on the East Coast, potentially through the woods, trees, et cetera, stuff is getting bumped and jostled, and now I've doubled the amount of worry in my mind. That did my turrets get hit? Did the thermal get hit? Et cetera. There's that fact too, but I get what you're saying on the how they should work. It's just in my experience that most of them have not been that way, nor when you're talking about that, they've got to line up the day scope and the thermal scope. That does not say in most directions. Now, I'm a Marine, so I'm not the smartest individual anyways, and there's been times where I don't read the directions. I start doing things and then realize I should read the directions before, but there should be big bold words that say that, hey, these need to be in line. that it needs
should-
to,
they
that
should
needs
be
to
aligned.
be, because a lot of people are like, yeah, that I'm not tracking that,
Yeah.
So there's
So
that
what-
too.
Yeah, so what happens when they're not in line is that in principle, if in a perfect world, it should work just fine if they're not perfectly in line, as long as the eyepiece of a clip-on is covered by the objective of the rifle scope. Let me grab a rifle scope, hold on. So, just to make sure everybody understands what we mean. So here's a rifle scope, that's a 50mm objective. It's an old Miopt Optica 6. In principle, you should be lining them up so that they are lined up center of the objective to the center of eyepiece. If you offset it like this, it will still work, but you will start picking up some weird aberrations, edge effects. If you've dialed your turrets a little bit, you'll start picking up other shit. It will look like it's angularly shifted for the same reasons. For example, if you're using a clip-on, it's better to not use a sloped mount. You'll run into some of the same alignment issues. It's better to have a 0 MOA mount. Okay. And on top of it, another issue you run into is that, and that's more of a visual issue. So whenever you have a day optic, it's collecting light on most magnifications through its entire objective. So let's say I have a clip-on in front of it, and for this I'm going to use the Armasight operator, which I really like, by the way. It's quite. I think you've played with this one, right? Operator 640, Coop?
I have played with that one. Yes, I have not used it on a hunt, but I've played with it.
Okay. It's actually an interesting optic. They're doing something fairly clever that I'll talk about in a little bit, right? So, see, the eyepiece does not block the entire objective. That means if you put this thing in front of your scope, the objective of the day scope is still taking in light from around it. At night, it's not a big deal. There's not that much light. But during dusk or some compromised light where you might already want to use a thermal, but there is still some light, you're looking into the shadows, etc., that will greatly compromise the image quality you're getting out of the thermal. It will wash out some of the contrast you're seeing, just because extra light's going into the day optic. That is one of the reasons, for example, why if you put a clip-on in front of a low power variable with a small objective, you will somewhat surprisingly oftentimes have very nice image quality because the clip-on is just blocking all the extraneous stray light. This is a little bit of a diversion. Mr. Bullets for Bucks says he talked to somebody called Kyle yesterday. Does anybody know who Kyle is? Apparently not. Oh, yes? You're still muted.
He's from Wyoming, so he's probably frozen.
That would do. Okay. Right, all makes sense so far?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So generally, Coop's argument about the clip-on being it's heavy, it's more cumbersome, it's more likely to catch on shit is perfectly correct. If you are planning to have a dedicated rig for hunting hawks, coyotes, whatever, and you do the bulk of it with a thermal, get a dedicated thermal scope. It'll work a little bit better. It's going to be a little bit easier to work with. Oftentimes, those are a little bit larger. You can sometimes squeeze in larger batteries in there. For example, they make quite a few of them, and this is the Athlon Chronos ATS, with this form factor like a regular rifle scope. For bolt guns, etc., it's easier to mount this at the right height. And this long tube, which generally you don't need it for a thermal, it's just space for batteries, right? So you can have nice long runtime with something like this. One of the downsides is that if you're putting it in a rifle that has a little bit of a kick, the way the eyepieces for all these digital optics are designed, you can accidentally get too close to an eyepiece. And when I put that dedicated thermal in my 458 Stockholm, I learned about that very fast. So on that gun, moving forward, we have a low power variable with a thermal clip-on, right? Because the way it works with these eyepieces, you can go in and out, etc. Still, to see the image, you have a lot of latitude. It's not nearly, the eye relief is not nearly as defined as it is with conventional rifle scopes. Right, Hayden. Still with me? Did I lose you anywhere? It all makes sense.
No, I'm tracking. Makes sense.
Excellent. Very good. Because you're kind of quiet, so I have to ask every once in a while.
Well, I feel like I'm the one who's learning. I shouldn't be the one talking.
Yeah, but I want questions if something is unclear. Right. If you just let me talk, I can do a couple hours without taking a breath. Right. But doesn't mean it's going to be productive. No, this is my life. I designed some of the first thermals for Raytheon 20 some years ago. So I can talk about this for a very long time. Right. Doesn't mean it's going to be actionable, useful, productive.
Yeah. Hey, look, I wasn't
Good.
muted that time.
So, Coop, you said you finally have a clip-on that seems to work the way it's supposed to. Which one is it?
That's the Secular 5640 from AGM, the Secular C, actually, from AGM.
Oh, very good.
A lot of guys kind of sleep on the Secular because it takes 1, 2, 3 batteries, but I found that if you put the rechargeable 1, 2, 3 batteries in there, they last for a few hunts and do a good job, and you save money on the 1, 2, 3s. So good scope.
Let's see. So AGM is one of the companies. I've never tested this stuff. I've seen it. It looks perfectly respectable. But I don't have Secular LRF. Okay, that's the one with laser rangefinder. Oh, it's a nice big lens. 75 millimeter lens?
Mine is the 5640.
Okay. 50.
The 75 is just overkill for where I mainly hunt, which is Eastern North Carolina and South Carolina. So
yeah. All right, so I'm gonna. That's very interesting. So, so that looks like AGM is just using iRay, unless I'm misinterpreting what the form factor looks like. Does that has that crazy 2500 by 2500 pixel display on the back in the eyepiece?
yes, I believe so. I don't have the
Yeah, so that's
specs
an iRay.
right in front of me.
Okay, good for them.
They're AGM's their cores come out of Vietnam. Vice iRay's coming out of China, I believe. Yeah, Chinese.
Okay, I'll double check on that. I'm not aware of anybody making good cores in Vietnam, but one of the things that's been happening, lots of Chinese companies have been setting up shop in Vietnam ever since Trump started doing sanctions of all sorts.
Correct.
So I'll double check. I did not look at it super carefully, but chances are it's the same Chinese cores with Vietnamese packaging.
I got a question for you, Coop.
It's not a bad thing. They're quite good.
I don't believe so. I don't believe that AGM's cores are Chinese or the same as iRay's because I was specifically told that they're not. Doesn't mean that they're not, of course, but
Yeah.
I was told that they're not. Whereas I know that Knox Picks, iRay, and Ricks are all the same core.
Correct. Yeah. So Knox Picks and Ricks, basically owned by iRay.
Correct. And there's reasons for that I don't. There's reasons for that. I'll just say that. But
well, I don't have to be politically correct when they tried to ban a bunch of Chinese thermal OEMs because they were supplying stuff to Russia. And
exactly.
They couldn't change the corporate structures because to set it up so that the part of the company that sells thermals to the civilian market is not in the same branch that was sanctioned, right? And then they realized that iRay name is now tainted, so they started pushing Knockpicks and Ricks. So.
Absolutely.
We brought the most anti-Russian to the party tonight, Coop. So we're good.
And that's wonderful. I would hate to go to iRay and ask them to donate to my nonprofit, and then they're like, "Nah, man, we saw you talking trash." So when that first happened,
that's my job.
I asked an iRay rep about that, and they're like, "No, that didn't happen. That didn't happen." And then I'm like, "Well, it seems to me that you guys are going to be rebranding to Knox Picks and phasing iRay out because you all got caught selling to the one country you do not sell to, which would be Russia." So
look, I'm very friendly with a bunch of people from iRay. At least I used to be. I don't know if they still like me or not, but there are companies that I'm super friendly with, and I say exactly the same things that I want to about them. So that's a nice thing about being independent. But you shouldn't. I care. That having been said, they make very nice cores and they make very nice thermals. I've spent quite a lot of time with their 75 millimeter product with a 640 by 480 sensor from their hybrid line. And other than the fact I don't especially like that it's from China, on the merits of the product itself, right? So the way I look at this is that I don't make political pronouncements whether we should buy thermals from China or not. I can argue this thing both ways, honestly.
Yeah.
I point out where it's made, and I speak about the product based on the merits of the product. That's it. So,
correct.
I find all this corporate structure stuff really amusing, and the part of it I find really amusing is how our American government can fucking figure out which company is which. This is just government at its finest, right? If you're going to sanction them, just sanction them. If you are going to pretend you're sanctioning them and then give them an obvious way to get out of it, just don't do it. Who are you kidding? Right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's always very good.
Before we move on, I got a question for Coop. You mentioned using rechargeable 123 batteries. Do you also use those in night vision, or do you just use the plain Jane 123 battery?
I mean, are you still using night vision? Are we still doing that?
Well, why not?
So I mean, I joke about that, but
not for hunting,
right? I don't use rechargeables on night vision. I don't. I've never had, even in the military, I was like, yeah, let's try that, and just never had any luck, and it wasn't really good for the nods back then anyway. So I don't use them in night vision. I only thought to use them in the secular. I have a couple. I have mounted secators, and I have the clip-on secular, and I realized when I retired from the Marine Corps that 123 batteries are ridiculously expensive. So I went to the rechargeables, and they've been working pretty good.
Okay.
So generally speaking, the way the battery business works is that rechargeables have less energy in them than conventional lithiums, but they retain energy much better in the cold. So the cell chemistry is different in rechargeables. So if you're hunting at night in the winter, etc., you pretty much have to go rechargeable. Correct. They do have different discharge rates and some other things. So some devices out there are designed to be more efficient with rechargeables. But if you're in a warm climate, lithiums will give you a little bit more runtime. If you're going to go cold, rechargeables all the time. And that's not just for thermals. I ran into the same thing with my LRF binoculars. Right, I use the Leica geodesics. Yeah, when it drops below about 50 degrees, you kind of want to go to rechargeables because lithiums just start crapping out.
A lot of guys run power banks on their guns or their thermals anyways. A lot of guys I hunt with anyways, just because even scopes that run the 18650s, and I don't know why people are so in love with the 18650s. I would prefer scopes that are made to use 18650s that in a pinch you could throw 2 CR123s in there, but a lot of scopes aren't like that. But a lot of guys just go to the power bank and they can run that all night or multiple nights. So
that's when I used to spend a little bit more time in Texas, sitting in a blind, looking for hogs. That's kind of a civilized way of hunting, right? You go sit there until you get bored. Get back to camp. They will have a 8-foot-long smoker, and there was a brisket on it, and a selection of bourbons that will put any Dallas bar to shame. That's the way to hunt.
That's that high-end hunting right there.
But anyhow, I am not a huge fan of 18650s. They have become kind of the dominant source because they have significantly more energy than CR123s. But in terms of form factor, one of my favorites was there used to be this company called AccuFire that unfortunately went out of business. So nice guys who are in Dallas. I've met with them. The AccuFire Incendus had this, and AccuFire is one of the things I couldn't find. It was in my garage somewhere. They had this interesting arrangement. They used 4 CR123 batteries, and they would just go kind of, the scope looked like this. See what Armasight did, they have 2 vertical CR123s. what Accufire did, they put in 4 into the body from the side like this, so they were perpendicular to the recoil axis, and the runtime was very good.
Yeah, that's
One
how
of the
the secular is the same. Battery compartment is right there on the side.
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, that's a very good way of doing it. I like it. Very cool.
Yeah.
But with the longer 18650s, it's just hard to put them in from the side. And so like on this Steiner, it's 2 battery compartments with longitudinal. They're going like this. It works, it's kind of sleek. The runtime is pretty decent, but it's not bad. There is a big kind of a trade-off here, right? So, for example, I have this Leica here, and that is an internal battery. What Leica did, this is a new Colanox 2 sight, and I just got it a few days ago. Very, very nice optic. The battery is built-in rechargeable, but they will be able to replace it if it craps out new, and they're giving you basically a 10-year warranty on this whole thing, which is kind of nice. The big advantage of these custom batteries, whether they're built-in or removable, is that when you plug in your power bank in this, not only does it run the optic, but it's also recharging the batteries. With any of the removable ones, like the 18650s or rechargeable 123s, whatever they're called, you can power the optic from the external bank, but it just blocks the batteries. It doesn't top them off. And it's kind of a trade-off. You can either have extra batteries with you. It's easy to have a few 123s, 18650s, whatever. Or you can have this thing continuously topped off. So I kind of go back and forth with this. So I don't know what's better. For example, with this Athlon, so it's a Chronos. It's also made in China, made by Guide Infrared. We should probably talk about different thermal OEMs also, and a little bit about the images. They have a battery built in and one removable one that looks like 18650 but isn't. But it looks like a repackaged 18650. But both of these can be recharged in the scope. If I figure out how to put it back in. I think like this. There you go. In the scope, but just connecting to the same charger that powers my cell phone. Okay. And when sitting in a blind, let's use a connector. When sitting in a blind, yeah, we all just hooked up the power bank, and that's it. Like sitting in a blind go ahead.
No, I will say, since you pulled up on another one of the traditional scopy looking ones. So I had I have a bone to pick, really, with the fact that these companies went from a compact scope like your Rattler series or some, or the Rix so the S3 maybe, I can't think. So either which way, compact scopes to these long scopy models, and and this just came on strong the last couple of years. And I asked 3 different companies at SHOT Show last year, why did you do that? And every single one said, because they look like traditional scopes and clients want them to look like traditional scopes. Why on earth would we want to go from a compact scope to a long scope? Just because it looks traditional doesn't mean it's right. I mean,
it's not right, but there is actually a reason for it that nobody will tell you. So it's driven by the demand in Europe, where in quite a few countries, a lot of the hunting with thermals is banned. And because this one from a distance looks like a traditional scope, a bunch of people go and break the rules and hunt with thermals. That's how it started.
You know what? I will accept that.
I bet you it's done in the United States as well.
Look,
wouldn't surprise me either, but I have not heard it from anybody in the United States. I've heard it from the guys in Poland and Serbia and Croatia and a few other places.
I will accept that, and I'll tell you why. Because I had a discussion with a person from Element Optics a few years ago, and I said, you need to put an LPVO on the market right now. And he said, I'm waiting till we do a fiber optic LPVO. And I said, that's ridiculous. Do a illuminated reticle like everybody else and put it on there, and then send out the illuminated or the fiber optic one later on. And he said, well, the Europeans want the fiber optic, to which I said, no one gives a flip about the Europeans. If you want to be known as anything other than an air gun scope, you need to sell scopes in America to Americans because we're the ones with all the guns in this world, right? So
Yeah,
get with the program. So,
You're
but I will
exactly
accept. That excuse that you gave me right there about the Europeans and it looking like a real scope from afar. I will accept that because I get it.
It's not an excuse; it's an explanation. Right. But another factor, for example, so I have, I mostly use AR or AR form factor guns. I don't know, Coop, if you remember, the rifle I was shooting at the match is the Fix by Q. I've got 4 of them.
Right.
I hunt with them, I matches with them. And on them, you can put anything you can put on an AR, the way the form factor works out. But I have an old Tikka 695 and 280 Remington. It's wonderful for all this sort of stuff. And the way it is set up and the way the stock is set up, it's actually easier for me to set this up at the right height because most of the more traditional thermals that look like this end up sitting a little bit higher. I have to start messing with chick pieces and all that. So in principle, there's a place for these, but I think that was more of an afterthought. They just did this so that the game wardens wouldn't check.
Coop's like, I'll take 2.
Again, so I actually have 2. I have 2. I have 3 actually. I have a Pulsar and I have 2 AGM Adder V2s. So I do have them. They've kind of grown on me, but I still prefer the compact ones, especially on ARs all day. So
I'm with you. Look, I mean, if you're looking from a distance, can you tell which is which?
No. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Definitely not what I was expecting you to say, honestly, but I'm with you.
Hey, he's got a shady side. Let it come out.
I like it.
He grew up in the USSR, bro. Like,
yeah.
You never know what those guys are up to.
I don't appreciate it. I so enjoy getting on other people's nerves that I hold nothing back.
Can't you wait till we all come to Montana again? It's gonna be a riot.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm trying to convince Delta to sponsor a stage. They need exposure in the US market. They're a nice company.
Awesome.
When you guys start getting ready to look for sponsors, let me know. Last year I talked Primary Arms into a couple other people, and this time, if you give me more time, we'll get more optics companies into.
We actually just had a meeting. We discussed it actually the other day, Monday, and it will be the first weekend in August, and we will have the.
Oh, you're killing me.
All the sponsor stuff getting ready to go right after the new year. So
first weekend.
So that's the 7th and 8th of August.
The one prior.
The 30th to the 31st and the 1st.
I'm pretty confident in that. Yeah, I will double check that.
Perfect. I can make that one.
Will you double check that, and then let's get the website updated because I'm waiting to book stuff until you solidify that.
So first weekend is.
Okay. I've got a handful of friends that are just waiting for the date, and we're gonna book. So.
All right.
So if it is 1st and 2nd, I can make it. But if it's 8th and 9th, I'm probably out.
I'm out the 13th, so let's not do that one.
Let's do the 31st and the 1st. I like that one. I'll text Tony. Hey, we rewrote your meeting on a live stream with Coop, so here's your real date. And he'd be like, I don't give a crap what you did.
I think I was voted.
Why is Aaron texting me this?
I was voted the funniest RO at the last one, mostly by me. So you can't do it without me.
I don't think I saw the voting there. So
yep, it's that. It'll be that first weekend there. The it should start what 28th of July. Is that it?
So the Saturday is August 1st. Sunday is August 2nd.
Correct. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So
okay, I can do that one.
I'm putting that on the calendar right now.
Awesome. I like it.
Because last time I talked to Tony, he was thinking it was going to be the week of the 13th. So he moved it 2 weeks up. So perfect.
That is
if it's 1st and 2nd, I might bring my 12-year-old son with me.
I just
That's just before the
te-
school starts.
I just texted him, so I'm like triple checking this. I wrote it down in my little notebook here, so I'm triple checking.
Just tell him he's committed because now it's on the internet, and the internet's always
Yeah.
right. And you
Internet
can't,
Internet's always right.
and you can't take anything back once it goes on the internet, so it's done. Everybody heard that on the stream. TRT Sniper Challenge in White Sulphur, Montana is the 1st of October.
August.
Sorry, August.
Fix that.
I
Dude,
ruined
now
it.
you really screwed it
Oh, I
up.
ruined it. Sorry. We're gonna redo
right.
that. It's the official statement. It's the 1st of August.
All right, we've got one mystery solved. There'll be a couple others. So Mr. Bullets for Bucks goes, I got mixed up. Kyle is 4-season fighters. I did a live with Coop a while back. Okay.
Good
Did
to
do a
see
live
you
stream with
again.
Bullets?
Hey, Steven, you live close to Montana. Sniper match,
Yep.
August 1st.
Sniper match, TRT challenge. We'll see you there.
Are we gonna have a thermal
That's good.
side stage now? I think we should.
Oh, we totally should have a thermal side stage.
I was thinking about that because I shot a stage with my thermal. Actually, the stage URO'd, I had shot that with
Yeah,
my
I remember.
thermal.
I remember. I had a lot of fun
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah,
So
we should do that.
it-
I don't know. I can't
it-
disclose what the stages are going to be, guys. Come on.
Oh, we don't need to.
If I'm rowing this thing again, all I want is for us to have the same part time as everybody else, not like last year.
That would be great.
I'm
See you guys.
pretty proud of our score, Coop, because we shot everything with like a minute or 2 minutes less part time. So we're like our own. We're like that was not the part time yesterday.
I'm going to defer to the match directors on that one.
So we're blaming Scott.
So-
Okay.
Not me. Not me. You know, thermal hunting, yes. Match, no.
I came in dead last, but I have an excuse because Aaron sabotaged my teammate's rifle. So
Your teammate is a dear and near special friend of mine. So I'm sorry.
he's a good dude. Though. I enjoyed him very much. By 6th stage, we got his rifle almost sighted in. So
It was almost functional, huh? Perfect.
The rifle, not the shooter. The shooter was never
Right.
functional.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
okay.
Oh,
Anyhow, there is something here in the comments from Steven from Bullets for Bucks that will kind of get us back a little bit on track and get us into image discussion that I do want to have because we tend to look at thermals in a very different way than we should. So here's what he says. Depth perception for me has been much better, at least for nodes. Nodes meaning night vision devices, image intensifiers. And that is correct. And there is a reason for it. What you are seeing with night vision is basically just a monochrome version of what you see with your naked eye, amplified. It's the same kind of light as you see with your naked eye, except there is not a lot of it, so that device amplifies it and you get to see at night. But there has to be some light out. For example, Coop, I don't know, where did you serve? Were you at all at Tora Bora?
I was
Afghanistan?
not at Tora. I was not at Tora Bora, but I was in northern Helmand province in
Okay.
2009.
Did you do any of the cave stuff? Deep into the caves?
I cleared some caves where we were at, but not anything as robust. Not anything close to like Tora Bora.
yeah.
So if
Tony was the one at Tora Bora.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think you had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What we did with the caves, one of the problems we found is that night vision devices, they amplify scattered ambient light, even very, very low levels of it. If you get deep enough into some of these cave structures, there is not enough light even for them. So it's becomes kind of a shit show. If you use a thermal, if there is something warm-blooded hiding in there, you'll see it. But it does not help you walk. You don't see rocks, walls, etc. They're all the same temperature. The way thermal devices work, they show you a temperature differential. For example, if there was a thermal pointing at me, if the wall behind me was the same exact temperature as me, you would not see me. I would completely blend it. All it does, thermal, it looks for temperature differential. If you are deep into a cave of some sort, which is temperature stabilized, and as you go underground, the temperature is the same year round, right? you can't see anything other than warm-blooded creatures. It's for the same reasons. If you're going hunting, thermal versus night vision, get a thermal, right? Like warm-blooded animals stand out like a sore thumb. Assuming the image is properly optimized, which we'll get to in a moment. But thermal does not help you walk. If you are trying to walk at night or see other different objects, night vision. That's going to show you where the terrain is, where the trees are to a better degree. I mean, you see trees with thermal a little bit. But basically, it will show you a conventional image. Because it is a conventional image, you actually have some depth perception with it. You have minimal, if any, depth perception with the thermal. The image you get with the thermal is not really the same picture you see. It's something called a thermogram, where you're not seeing objects, you're not seeing textures, you're not seeing anything other than temperature differences. If you look at a human face, it looks completely alien to you with the thermal. Why? Because rather than seeing specific shape of a nose, you are seeing the warmest parts on the face are your tear ducts, right? And they stand out. Other things stand out. Looks completely freaky. Because it is an image we're not used to, our depth perception goes to shit. Our brain needs a little bit of training to learn how to interpret it. And it's going to start trying to pull depth out of it. If you have a lot of experience with thermals, Coop probably does. And it will more or less trip you up because it will be looking for depth of field where there is none. Okay. One of the things to remember with thermals, and I did this interesting thing. I was out at the range at night, and one of my friends, is a local PRS shooter, was out there with me. He wanted to look at a bunch of thermal. I set up thermals and night vision and everything for him to look at. And we had this Armacite, the Operator 640, and some Chinese thermals and others were looking out. And he made a very good observation that I was hoping he would make. He realized that, for example, with the Chinese thermals, you could see the berms and the structure of the terrain a little bit better. But if you actually wanted to shoot something, and we had metal plates that warmed up during the day, what you actually needed to shoot, you could see better with Operator with Armacite. And a lot of it comes down to how images are processed, and honestly to a lot of bullshit that happens with the specs for thermal devices. Because most of the people who develop thermal imaging cameras, especially in China, have never shot a gun, probably never even seen one. They have a tendency to try to tune the image, meaning enhance contrast, do edge enhancements, all like that, like you would do with a conventional digital camera. So we'll take small edges, very low contrast things, the things you see in normal terrain on the ground and trees, etc., and boost those edges, right? So if you just glance through it, it's a very sharp, contrasty, very pleasing image. But what it does, that means the warm-blooded animal that you kind of need to shoot does not stand out as much as it would before all those edges were enhanced. Okay, you with me?
Yep.
So when I get all these different Chinese-made thermals, when I normally run them, I tone down contrast enhancement substantially. And what it does, the picture overall looks less pretty, but the stuff I need to shoot stands out more. It's another thing. Are you guys familiar? If you look at the specs on the thermal devices, you know what NETD is? It's in the specs. They say 20 millikelvin, 30 millikelvin, 50. Have you seen that at all?
I'm actually looking at that right now.
Okay. So, for example, for one of the ones I looked at recently, someone inspected said the NETD is 15 millikelvin. They're lying. They're lying. Right? It's not 15 millikelvin. So NETD stands for noise equivalent temperature difference. If you really want to measure NETD, you go to a guy like me. I run a company that makes equipment for this kind of stuff. You buy a good amount of equipment. It's going to be well into 5 figures minimum, and you measure noise equivalent temperature difference. It is supposed to be measured with a certain set of standard conditions. Some integration time, field F1 cone, etc., etc., etc. If you measure it that way, the correct way, the industry standard way, there isn't a single uncooled thermal, which is what all these are, that's even marginally close to 15 millikelvin. It doesn't exist. Okay. You can set up the measurements so that shows you a lower number, which looks better for specs, but it's complete bullshit. It's not relevant. It's not comparable.
So there's no way that the thermals that claim that they're sub 12 millikelvin or sub 20 are sub 20 or sub 12.
So cooled ones like his and all those, yes. Uncooled, like all the stuff based on microbolometers, everything we're discussing right now, all the stuff that costs $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, this is all uncooled thermal. They are not under 20 millikelvin.
I've used cooled thermals in the military, so
yes, that's the advantage of cooled thermals. A very good cooled thermal will be in the 10 to 15 millikelvin range, right? And you can see really amazing things really far away with this thing.
Yeah, I could see my friend. I could make out his face about 1 kilometer away in a Zodiac in New River in North Carolina.
Okay, so his uses a lens that's 240. Can you guys give me 1 second? Sorry, my son is calling me, and that doesn't happen at this time usually. Give me 1 moment.
You're good.
Okay, you guys entertain the crowds. I'll be right back. As soon as I figure out how to mute myself. It's interesting. Hi, Daniel. Okay, I'll do that.
He didn't mute.
No, he didn't. It's okay.
I did not mute. I like when I have 4 people here, it's not giving. It's supposed to be a button on the bottom that mutes. Oh, there we go. The sharing thing was blocking it. Great. I need to unlock my son's computer. He pretends he's doing homework, and he ran out of time.
More YouTube. Let's go.
Yeah, I caught him playing games instead of doing homework earlier, but I had a lively discussion.
Unblock his computer while we ask Coop, out of all of the thermals you've used and all the different brands, what's your favorite and what's your least favorite?
My favorite is AGM, mainly, and so I've owned ATN, I've owned iRay, I've owned Rix, I've owned Pulsar, I've owned Armasight, I've owned and like I said, I've used plenty of military ones as well. AGM, because they were your original blue collar scope. Your average blue collar guy could get a Rattler 35 384 for a few $1,000s and be in the thermal game. That scope was good enough quality, and obviously in the last 5-6 years, especially the technology has come a really long way. But that scope right there could get you in the game for a good price. Warranty was good, customer service was good, and they take a beating. And I am very hard on my gear, and they take a beating, and the price was right for your average blue collar guy to get into it. That is why they're my favorite. I still have a bunch of them. I've used the other companies. My least favorite probably is going to be Envision. Envision's my least favorite, and that's just because I had a poor interaction with them. They thought that I would, pro staff for them, and by buying my own $8,000 thermal, and they wanted me to do all these content requirements, and I, responded with like, "Hey, man, I charge $100 an hour consultation fee. If you want me to come to your property, set up a deer stand or scout it for you, right? $100 an hour. My quick math tells me that you need to give me a handheld, a weapons mounted, and probably pay me $12,000 or more for the year. So do you want to rethink giving me a optic to do the content with?" And that was the end of that conversation. And then they were super rude to me at SHOT Show last year, so they can pound sand. Now, I have a serious issue with the way that people fanboy on iRay. The iRay fanboys it's insanity to me that they're willing to pay that much more money for a scope that is not that much better than, say, an AGM. And they just fanboy out like I don't even know. I'm a good example right now, a good analogy on the top of my head, but they fanboy out hard, and I think that that's unwarranted. The AGM's caught up to them. Other companies have caught up to them. And then there's other companies like Trigicon and Envision. Envision and Trigicon, they haven't updated their thermals in years. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have a bunch of other features that other people have. Trigicon rests on its laurels because they have military contracts. So they really don't need to do squat for money because they've got government contract money coming in. Envision hasn't done anything to upgrade anything. They just are trying to sell their $8,000 scope that was outdated about 3 or 4 years ago. iRay's got Knox picks and RICs, and nobody really knows that. I mean, according to what I was told anyways, that RICs started by using the cores that iRay didn't want or was their seconds, right? But that's their blue collar budget stuff is RICs. DNT, honestly, DNT's, their new products have impressed me. I've seen them, played with them. The one scope, I'm trying to think, is maybe the Thermite that has the day scope, IR, or the night vision or IR, and then thermal all in one. That's an impressive little unit. They're not very pretty to look at. I'll say that they are not pretty to look at all. But DNT is coming on strong. Night Pearl. They're kind of like they're very Pulsar like to me. They're coming on strong. I haven't messed with any of the guide thermals, but I've looked through them. They're meh. I haven't monkeyed with PARD, but I have looked through their scopes. I've heard that guys like them. I just haven't had a lot of experience with them. So, Stinking Armacite, I really do like their products. But the units I was looking at last year, again, I can't remember if they didn't have Wi-Fi to download to your straight to your phone on an app, or if it was that they didn't record. It was one of those two that I really didn't like, because these days, with all the guys that are getting into night hunting, you have to have be able to download it straight to your phone, because we are the instant gratification society these days, and I want to see it, how I missed it on my phone, or relive and hear the meat slap from my phone right after. So I think I hit just about all the major companies there.
Yeah, I'm going to give you some background on all of them. It'll upset you a little bit.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
Bring in the doom hammer.
But before that, since I always get point back to Rachel discount, I'll finish the image quality part, because there is one more aspect to it that is important. And then I'll give you some background on who makes these things, where, how, and where they go. So remember I talked about the Chinese ones amplifying the contrast of the things you're not planning to shoot a little bit too much, which can obscure things, right? So if you look in some distant thing, is it a bush or is it an animal, right? If you bump up the edges, you can't always tell. One of the ways they do this is something called multi-frame image processing. So all of these are basically little video cameras. And the way video camera works, there is a stream of images coming in. If it says 50 hertz, that means that taking images at 50 images per second, 60 hertz, 60 per second, etc. So, and you would think that it would be in terms of the lag latency, like when you scan, if the image looking laggy or not, is it transitioning quickly, you think that would all be the same, but when you do it with several side by side, you clearly realize, oh yeah, they all say 50 hertz, but they're clearly not the same. So what a lot of them do, they take 2 or 3 successive frames and try to analyze noise and contrast based on information from all 3 frames, and use that to correct the next frame. So it may be the sensor may be running at 50 hertz, but if they are looking at 2 or 3 frames at a time, it slows everything down. Gives you a beautiful image, but it slows everything down. That has been for the longest time one of the differentiators between many Chinese-made cores and many US-made ones, is that everything that is US-made, they worked off of the original requirements that the military put out, and they did not allow multi-frame averaging for the same reasons, because if you're transitioning, you do not want lag. Okay?
Correct.
Armacite, and I'll tell you a little bit about them, they do not have multi-frame processing. So if you just look at it, the way they tune the image looks a little bit dull, but what you need to shoot sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's a very fast refresh and update. Okay. Arrays and guides and all those are mostly doing 2 or 3 frame processing. They are trying to do it a little bit differently, not quite working so far. When they're supplying cores to some Euro-American companies, there is a way to beat that down to some degree, but not always as much. So as the AGM goes, again, I'm not super familiar with the process. I've seen it, I haven't tested it. The origin of AGM is interesting. So a bunch of Russian guys, kind of like me, they're a little bit older. Most of them about 5-10 years older than I am. They came to America. They did some optical stuff in Russia. They all made their original money by importing some cheap night vision from former Soviet Union, because there was a bunch of it over there as the country was falling apart. And then quite a few of them went and started doing more stuff on their own. The guys in California and San Francisco started the original ATN. Okay, and they all made pretty decent money. They were not great thermals. They were doing all sorts of interesting stuff. Then they had a little bit of a split, and a couple of guys went off and started the original Armacite. Okay. Armacite was fairly successful. It was bought by FLIR. That was another cluster, then killed by FLIR, then resurrected again. But some of the original Armacite guys went off and started AGM. It was all original ATN group. Okay. And the guys on the East Coast, one of them, his name is Max. He started Envision. I actually know him really well. He's a good friend. And there's another one in San Diego at Torrey Pines. They all kind of all know each other. All speak the same language and all that sort of stuff. So there's all that original DNA. ATN basically uses French image sensors doing their own cores, but they're using the cheapest possible image sensors. The way these are manufactured, they are manufactured in a sort of weird mix between the MEMS and semiconductor fab. And you make these image sensors and you test them, and some of them test great in terms of responsivity, uniformity, yada yada, some not so much. Then you go and sell them to different customers. ATN was buying the cheapest crap they could get out of Software Deer, now Linrad, right? And that's one of the reasons why you've got a lot of ATN stuff. Oh, yeah, it looks good on paper. There's lots of pixels. You look through it and go, nah, not so great. They were starting with crappy sensors and not doing very well in terms of processing the image. Since it is basically a digital camera, how you process the image after the sensor is a big deal. There is a difference between a sensor and a core. Sensor is just the thing that sees a light. The core also has some readout electronics. Linrad, which is this French company, that's one of the almost the only decent alternatives to the Chinese. If you're trying to buy something, they don't do cores, they do sensors. And they have very robust libraries to teach you how to make your own cores. So Armacite, when they first started, one of the things they did when they started their own thing, they came out of ATN, started their own thing, they were buying cores from FLIR, and then FLIR just bought them and killed them. When Armacite decided to resurrect themselves, and the Armacite I have here, that's a product of that resurrection, they went and bought sensors from Linrad and started making their own cores in Arizona. So these are French sensors, US-made cores. The more expensive companies, originally Oasis and Envision and stuff, what they were doing, same as Pixels on Targets, quite a few others, they were buying US-made cores from BAE. They used to be made in New Hampshire, and putting them into devices. The image quality of those cores is just absolutely excellent. In terms of pure image quality for the spec, I think Envision is probably the best uncooled thermal on the market. They don't have many other bells and whistles, but the image quality is spectacular. The basic problem is that earlier this year, BAE stopped making those thermal cores. The factory shut down, etc. For me, it's a major problem. For my day job, they were a big customer. So every single non-Chinese made core that you can think of is in manufacturers calibrated on equipment that we make for my day job. That's what I do. So BAE stopped making theirs. That means that 3GCon may be dead in the water because they have not updated theirs, as Coop correctly pointed out, quite a long time, the Reapers and Hunters and all that. And I have no insight into whether they're trying to use any other core. Envision, also based around a BAE cores originally, so they tested every other core in the market. They picked one that they like. They like the image quality. I was at Envision last month. Image quality looks very good, but there's still some work to do. So they are switching to a different core. They kind of have to, okay, because what they were using BAE is no longer available. Some of the very high-end stuff that people love, the Oasis, Pixel on Target, etc., was all BAE cores that all are trying to figure out what world they're going to live in. They cannot use Chinese cores. They have a bunch of government contracts. So my best guess is that Pixels on Targets probably will end up buying sensors from Linred from France and doing their own cores in the US. That's my best guess. Basically what Armasight is doing. And I think guys at Pixels on Targets have a lot of expertise. We have a big industry insider trade show in April, so I'll figure out what they're up to after that show. With the Chinese manufacturers, there are three main fabs that make uncooled infrared imagers in China. One is called Raytron Tech. iRay is their brand. Another one is called Guide. We all know what Guide is. There are two more. It'll come to me, but the other two are not super relevant. One is called DALI, and we don't really see them in weapon sites. They do amorphous silicon, learned from the French at some point. And the third one, I don't remember, but they were sanctioned a long time ago, so you barely ever see them in the US. AGM used to use their cores for a little bit, but now they stopped. To the best of my knowledge, I just texted a couple of people, to the best of my knowledge, Coop, AGM cores are just iRay cores. If they say they're coming from Vietnam, and I'll look into it more carefully, chances are they just ship them from China to Vietnam, keep them in the warehouse for a few minutes, change the labels, and send them this way.
I will have an answer to that.
No. I'm sure they'll
Very
tell you it's coming
soon.
from Vietnam. They may know or not know, right?
And I'm going to blame you. I'm going to blame you. Ilya told me.
By all means, I'm going to go visit them at SHOT Show and tell them, do you remember that Russian guy Coop was telling you talks shit about you? That's me.
I'll be at SHOT Show. We can go do it together.
Yeah,
I'm in. I'll be there. I'll be there Tuesday and Wednesday. So let's go do it.
That's good. So by everything that I can find, these are iRay cores. Now it's not a bad thing. They're very nice cores, and AGM does build their devices on their own. It's not like iRay builds it for them; they relabel it. There's a lot of expertise that goes into building these things beyond just the core. There's a lot to it. But I've seen this, quite a lot from Bearing Optics, from all these guys. Another Russian guy owns Bearing Optics. Somehow a bunch of Russians in this.
Yeah.
They're nice devices and all that, but I think, to me, they look just repackaged iRays. He'll deny it. That's what they are. He will say they buy iRay cores and just build them into devices themselves. And looking at them, I'm not convinced I believe it. So. But it's easy for me to say, right, my livelihood doesn't depend on this, right? If it did, maybe I would play hooky with the truth too. So I don't know.
That's a good one.
So who did I miss? Oh, Guide and iRay and Raytron Tech. So the reason the Chinese started doing this is very simple. United States government, when we developed infrared technologies, both cooled and uncooled, and our infinite wisdom, we just export restricted the shit out of it, right? And what it did, it forced everybody else to develop their own way of doing this. Israel started a company called SCD that does both cooled and uncooled thermal images very, very well. In France, a couple of companies that are now all called Linred, Lynred, that umbrella both do cooled and uncooled images. The Chinese, who couldn't get any of this, they wanted to do it cool. They couldn't do. The way you do the manufacturing is pretty difficult. I don't know if they figured it out by now, but not that I'm aware of. But with uncooled, which is the stuff that we're talking about, which works in a very, very different way. If you want to know from a technology standpoint how image collection works, we can talk about it. But Hayden is already falling asleep, so I think
No,
we'll
I'm
skip that
not.
part. Tell that to your yawn. Like it couldn't fit in a camera.
Hayden has an extremely technical mind, so he's probably really absorbing most of this.
I wouldn't be surprised. But anyhow, the Chinese were able to get the French to come and show them how to do this stuff. And then they stole the architecture from FLIR and started replicating it. That was Guide and Raytron Tech. Guide
That's
stole
what they
FLIR.
do, baby. They
If you
reverse engineer stuff.
If you
Raytron Tech is using the same architecture as the French were using. And since then, they haven't invented anything. They just scaled it up. The reason they called the thing Guide is that the first application that they needed was thermal image sensors for missile seekers on the nose of different missiles. Cooled ones work better, but uncooled ones are cheap and you need volume, and we are doing uncooled on some others as well. Hold on. No, I can't tell you which ones. So it works. But what happens is that if you make 1 million sensors and start testing them, you realize that for the requirements to put on the nose of a missile, top 0.5% maybe are good enough because there is a good amount of performance differentiation. So they built this enormous fab. The fab at Guide's fab that builds these things, it's probably the size of a large football stadium. I mean, these fabs are enormous. A large enclosed building the size of a football stadium, and there are many of these on the same campus. They had all these cores. I was trying to figure out what the hell to do with them, and there is, commercial market. And they just started throwing this shit out for no money at all. Completely destroyed the economics of all this uncooled, but that's how we can have the $3,000 thermal. Because they needed the top 0.5% sensors that were good enough for their military applications. And everything else was just gravy. Since then, they started using some of them for their smaller thermal weapon sites and all that sort of stuff, but that's how they basically flooded the market. And that gave them volume, and they got better. The IRA and Guide, they're actually quite good. I think the way they do image processing is good for cameras, not good for thermal weapon sites. But they work, and they work decently, and just through sheer force of iteration, it keeps on getting better.
Hey, we don't need a weapon site. We need good pictures for the gram. That's all that matters. For the gram.
All about the gram.
It's all about the gram.
It's all about the gram, baby.
Don't misunderstand me. You can shoot with them very, very well. But with all of the thermals, these are digital cameras. If you are going to grab one and just go shoot, you will have very different impressions from a lot of them. For example, Burris and Steiner, like this guy, the cores are made by Guide, and they do some of their own image processing and stuff like that. So when you look in the beginning, look through something from Guide and something from IRA picture is going to look much better because they tune it from by default to have much higher contrast. If you go into the set and start messing with them, you can make them look almost exactly identical. And the way Chinese corporate structures work, I once spent a couple of days trying to make heads or tails out of it. I still can't definitively say that IRA and Guide are two completely separate companies. Pretty sure they're controlled by the same entity from up top. So China is kind of interesting that way. But if it wasn't for them, we would the cheapest thermal you'd get would still be a $10,000 N-Vision. Now, I will say this, right? If you asked me if I had to say I'm going to have only one thermal optic, right, to put my AR and use, which one would it be? It would be Envision Nox 35 as one general purpose thermal optic. Small, compact, light, doesn't have Wi-Fi, doesn't have any of the shit, I don't care. Beautiful image quality, good battery life, light, works beautifully, right? So, but it's $7,000. Okay. Do I like to have Wi-Fi and straight to cell phone? Yeah. Have I ever shared a thermal image from a stand where I'm sitting waiting for a hog? No. I'm just not that dedicated.
He doesn't live for the gram. Did you hear that?
You got to change
that.
that.
The gram. You got to live for the gram, Ilya. Man, you've been missing.
I have a day job and a wife and 2 kids, 3 different side jobs. All of that comes before the gram.
You're in the hunting blind with nothing else to do besides post your images to the gram.
What do you mean I have nothing else to do? There's all sorts of things you can do alone in a hunting blind.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I don't know what he was. I don't know what he was thinking. I'm checking my email, writing things. I don't know.
You shouldn't. You got to be on the gram posting thermal images, buddy. Emails are for not sitting in the blind.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, I email from the blind more than I want to. Full disclosure, but
that's because you live in a blind. Okay, there's a difference here.
I sure try to.
I've seen your blind. It's got a chimney and a big screen and a heater and a lazy boy. I see it.
The best blind I have is an elevated platform with an actual ground blind screwed to it. So it's about I got a couple decent ones, but it's about usually like that. So balling on a budget over here.
You're not one of those Arkansas duck hunters that has like a floating trailer.
No.
So I used to spend
you gotta up the game.
Hunting at a friend of mine's lease out in West Texas. The main purpose for the blind is to protect you from the wind. It's flat and it's open. You may not think that West Texas is cold, but when that wind picks up, I grew up in a cold place. I'm pretty good with adverse weather. And I remember, so one time I took my brother. My brother is a doctor. I think, Aaron, you've met him, maybe. I think you met him. Yeah, Churchill.
Yeah.
One of the Eugenes, right? And he's one of his coworkers, another doctor. He's originally from Iran, Persian guy. Super bright guy. So I took them hawk hunting with me. And now, they asked me if it's going to be cold. I said it's going to be reasonable. I mean, I'm going to have long sleeves on and that kind of stuff, right? What I did not realize is that different people tolerate cold temperature differently. So for me, it was relatively cold. They turned blue. So like when we got back to camp, we had to basically open the mouths and pour in some bourbon to warm them up. That was interesting. So I think the Mormon Brigade does not appreciate this, but maybe Coop does. So.
Yeah, I do.
It's probably more effective on the Mormon Brigade. So
very likely. We'll see
require smaller doses.
Easier, we'll try.
We need smaller doses because a big dose will knock us out. So.
All right. So now I know what to bring to the next match in Montana. All right. Where was I? So I was going over different brands. Coop, which one did I forget?
Pulsar and Night Pearl.
Okay. Night Pearl, I think, was just a Chinese core with better labeling, if I remember correctly. I don't remember if it was Guide or iRay. I think it was. It looked like iRay. If you look at them enough, each core has a little bit of a specific characteristic. But it doesn't make much difference. Higher, better cores from iRay or Guide are both very good. Pulsar builds their things in Europe. Most of the market is in Europe. The center is mostly in Lithuania. The cores they use, they do their own cores for the most part. And the image sensors come from Leanrad from the French. Pulsar kind of owned this market for a little while. They're beginning to drop off a little bit, but it's not a technical issue. It looks to be more of a business issue. So the R&D center used to be in UK. It was yet another Russian guy who used to be in charge of it, and he had his own thing kind of on the side. And the guy who originally owned Pulsar sold it. And the guy he sold it to a few months later had a heart attack. And his two daughters, who neither know anything nor care about thermals, inherited it. That's last I heard a while back. So it's been a little bit rudderless, and the guy who used to run R&D left, and he's doing his own thing. He's doing some other very clever things. So Pulsar has the name recognition and the market power and good number of models. Good, generally pretty decent for the money. Lots of form factors. But they look to be, like I said, rudderless. So I don't know where they're going to go. It's completely unclear. For a little while, they kind of had it to themselves. This whole thermal thing was this little cottage industry. Everybody and their grandmother would go make a few thermals and then tell people on the internet fairy tales about 8 millikelvin sensitivity and all that sort of bullshit. Now,
Yeah.
bigger companies are kind of getting into this and trying to do this in a more professional way. So it's going to be interesting how it all is going to come out. But the big driver is definitely people like Coop, Hogs, and Coyotes. That's what's pushing civilian thermal in the United States.
100%.
Yeah. As far as what's affordable and what's not, honestly, the best way to do this, look for Black Friday. Right now, lots of stuff is affordable because market is down. Everybody's discounting. Like, this Steiner, Chinese core and all that. You can buy it for $2,000, under $2,000 still. 35 millimeter lens, 640 by 512 sensor. The sensor is made by Guide. Some image processing and menu system is done by Burst and Steiner, so it's actually using. So under $2,000, you can't beat that right now. But as you go higher up, you do get more polished devices. You get stuff that's not Chinese. You get things like the Armor Sight and all that. And it's if you want thermals, this is a pretty good time to be alive.
It is a great time to be alive.
Yeah. So like 10 years ago, this was all a dream. 20 years ago, when I was working on one of the first fused NVGs, went back at Raytheon, this wasn't even a dream. And like we never thought this would come to this price levels. Never in my wildest dreams would I think you could buy something like this for $4,000. It's not happening. So. But I will say this, somewhere in for my day job stuff, I got to spend a good amount of time with a 5 megapixel microballoon uncooled thermal with a 140 millimeter focal length lens.
Dang.
That was glorious.
You'd probably see ET with that thing.
Yeah, you could. One of the really interesting things was that I took it to a parking lot in Santa Barbara, and I remember I said thermal images look alien to us because it's a thermogram. You're not seeing typical textures, right? You're just seeing heat differentials. Turns out that if you can beat that with the pixel count, a 5 megapixel thermal image, it's still a thermogram, but it gave your eye so much information that it looked very natural. It was a much more relaxing, forgiving image. We have in the military world, we have some high resolution uncooled thermal. In the civilian world, the most you get is HD. IRA has it. I3 in Korea has it. There has one. TRS has one. They don't come out in the civilian world too much. They're looking very good. But for the things we do as hunters, I can make a very solid argument that it's more or less unnecessary because, again, you're not trying to see pretty pictures, you're trying to kill stuff.
Absolutely.
And at the distances at which we generally hunt at night, what's the longest shot you had in a coyote coop?
Longest shot I've made on a coyote is 535 yards.
Excellent. You can do that with a 50 millimeter focal length thermal with a 12 micron pixel. It's a little touch and go, but you can tell it's basically a coyote or a dog. It's not big, it's not a deer.
Yep, absolutely.
Barely, have barely enough pixels on target, but you can. So, what's the furthest shot you had on a pig?
Furthest on a pig is probably 350.
There we go. So you can do that with most 35, 40, 50 millimeter thermals without any issues. So,
yep, absolutely.
And here's a catch, right? So to see further than that and properly aim further than that, you start looking at a longer lens, longer focal, like the 75 millimeter. You can find on some commercial devices. AGM has one, IRA has one, same lens. But here's what happens. Remember I talked a little bit about this NATD business, noise equivalent temperature difference. It's basically a measure of the sensitivity of the image of the imaging core, right? How sensitive it is that's seeing this thermal radiation. Because they're generally not super sensitive, you need very fast lenses. Fast meaning low F number. I remember this cooled hiss that you've used in the military. You can shoot very far away, but remember the objective lens was not super big, right?
Correct.
Why? Because the cooled imager is so much more sensitive. It's running at 77 Kelvin temperature, roughly minus 200 centigrade. That image sensor is so sensitive that you can have a long focal length lens with fairly small collection aperture, something called f4. F number is the ratio of focal length to the objective diameter. I don't remember if his is f4 or f5, but I think it was an f4 lens, 240 millimeter focal length, and around 60 millimeter objective. Okay. With uncooled, what we're working with here that are much, much cheaper, they're not nearly as sensitive. So most of the lenses we use are f1, meaning the diameter of the lens is more or less the same as the focal length. So if you start going to a larger, longer focal length, let's say 75 millimeter lens, all of a sudden the front element needs to be roughly 75 millimeters in diameter. And with germanium optics, with optics that are used for thermal, as you start going bigger, they start becoming exponentially more expensive. So in terms of reaching fairly far out there, we are kind of running into an economics limit for now in terms of how long of a lens you can use.
Right.
That means that if, let's say, I go to a larger pixel count core, HD, full HD, 1368 or 1920 or whatever, they all exist. They're expensive, but they exist. I put that behind the 75 millimeter lens. It doesn't give me any extra range. It gives me a wider field of view, as we discussed earlier, but it doesn't give me any extra distance. It gives me a prettier picture, but I'm not using a thermal to look at pretty pictures. Gram and all, right? So you are running into this interesting limit. In principle, you can try to reach further with uncooled if you go to a smaller pixel, but you start running into some fundamental physics problems. The wavelength of light we are looking to capture is roughly in the 8 to 12 micron range. So 12 micron pixel is roughly the same size as the wavelength of light you're trying to capture. Starting going smaller will not necessarily get you more resolution because you start running into real diffractive limits of what you can capture. So a little bit of a dead end from a pure physics standpoint, where you can go with a much more expensive uncooled optic to get you a little bit wider field of view and a little bit of a prettier picture, but it will not let you shoot further. You with me? Is this sober silence because I upset all your hopes for future technology? Or not too much? Okay. Or you are just still trying to figure out my accent? Not always easy. I think Aaron got a pretty good read on it by now.
I'm just sad Scott's not here to argue with you like we did last time.
Yeah, well, he apologized. He thought it was tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll get him on here again. That was fun.
Oh yeah, and he knows better than to argue with me about thermal. But he still will, but he knows better. You do know Scott Parks? He used to be with Vortex for many years. He's a precision guy.
I mean, I got your accent figured out. I'm just soaking it all in. Like I said, I'm a Marine, so I'm not inherently, I'm actually smarter than I look and smarter than I sound at times, but, now I'm putting more knowledge in the old brain housing group to, for when clients are like, other than, hey, this is your budget, this is what you should get, now I can, make their brain leak out of their ear a little bit more, too.
You ever assemble a group of people who are interested in this stuff at some hunting camp? Let me know. I'll find a time, come spend a day with you. I'll be happy to do a talk. I live this stuff. This is literally my life.
Absolutely.
I'll be happy to do that. Where was I? Thermals, distance, correct. Right. So there is an interesting argument here. If you're trying to do everything with one thermal, yeah, longer lens, larger pixel count sensor will give you wider field of view and still good distance. But now you have a large device. If you're putting it something fairly small, you're going to be doing something quick with. Do you really want a 3-pound thermal on it? Right, with the objective this big?
Correct.
So everything ends up being a trade-off. But the most fundamental thing, again, when you think about thermal optics, you are there to detect hot, warm objects and shoot them. It's not for making the pictures of the lake. Okay.
Awesome.
There to make the grass grow.
There to make the grass grow.
Blood makes the grass grow, fellas. Blood makes the grass grow.
Okay. All right. I think I've bored everybody to death. People are dropping off. I want to look quickly if we had anything I need to address in the comments, because we've been at it for almost 2 hours, and I try to keep these things at a couple hours.
I got you some dinner.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Um,
So
in the last
all right,
5 minutes, let's
let's do that.
price point and which thermal would you pick?
Which one of us are you?
I don't. Coop, you set the price point. You know them better than me. Set the price point. You can name one, and Ilya will name one, and we'll go back and forth.
I think let's do it as like more of a 384 category, 640 category. I mean, there's not very many 1280s, but we could do that too.
Yeah,
that would be your low, mid, or low and higher range. So, what do you got for a 384, Ilya?
For 384, I got Save Your Money and buy 640.
All right.
For a very simple reason, because I can get the Steiner C35 Gen 2 clip-on, which is 640, under $2,000.
What model is that right there?
Steiner C35 Gen 2.
So
okay, I haven't messed with that, and that's under $2,000, and that's a 640 clip-on right there.
Yeah, 45 millimeter lens.
Yeah,
because the sales are slow, economy is down right now. It's been very affordable for quite a long time, right?
He's pulling my punk card for right from Jump Street right here.
Yeah, so it was $3,000 4 months ago. It dropped to 16, and it's back up to 18.
Yeah,
so
all
they
right.
have the price on it.
I'm gonna need to take a look at that thing. I mean, I guess on your lower end, if you're going straight like 384, core, or, I don't know, DNT's got some weird numbers. There's a lot of guys liking the DNTs. Like I said, they've kind of impressed me. They've kind of slid into that where AGM used to be price point wise. If you're an entry level thermal hunter, so that or still. I'd say the Rattler V3 or the Rattler V3 35 384 is pretty solid.
Yeah, they're actually quite good. So iRay used to be in that range, but there isn't much. But iRay has a 384 scope with a 42 millimeter lens, and I was quite impressed with how nice it was. But they've gotten a little bit expensive now because iRay is pushing new stuff through Knockpick. Pulsar has these thermals that look like flashlights. I don't remember the name. It's not.
Was it the Trail, the one they discontinued?
No, not the Trail. It looks. Fuck me. So they introduced them a couple of years ago. They looked a little bit like flashlights in terms of how the body of the thermal was shaped.
Oh, I know you're talking about. I can't think of the name either. Yeah.
Yeah. Not Thermal, not Merger, not Telos. Of course, their website is deeply unhelpful. There are thermal imagery riflescopes. Talion. T-A-L-I-O-N. Talion.
Yep, that's it.
So that was their budgetish line, but they had 384 and 640 in there. And they actually looked quite, for the money, they were all in this 1,800 to 2,500 range, as I recall, and they were quite good for that amount of money. So that would be somewhere where I start looking if you're looking for a dedicated thermal scope. So now remember, one of the things we didn't discuss, I lean toward clip-ons, mostly because of general paranoia and because I genuinely don't have guns. I don't do thermal hunting enough to just have guns dedicated to it. So my default way of doing this is to run my different, for example, I have a 6.5 Grendel I use for pigs. It's got a 2 to 12 scope on it and a clip-on, and I use it day and night.
Yeah.
So, but for most people with a dedicated gun, dedicated rifle scope is the better way to go.
Okay. Last category, the 640?
640. I go with the Rattler V3 5640. That unit, I think, really impressed me. I'll be in 1 minute. Yeah, I'll be in 1 minute. That unit really has impressed me. Second to that, would be probably the last one that Knox put out. That one was pretty solid too. I can't remember the model number because I try to ignore the whole IRA family because people get so freaking nuts about it.
Yeah, I'm not up to speed on Knox and Rick's model names, but basically IRAs are very solid. You find a good deal, and these are all IRAs I find. The one exception to it, so Rick's has this thing where they claim the optical zoom, where they zoom in the eyepiece. Have you seen that? It's fucking retarded.
Yes.
Don't do it. It's a stupid idea. It gets you good marketing, nothing else. It's not optical zoom. You're zooming it where there's no need to zoom anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. On the clip-on side, I will say this. In the 4K, 3.5 to 4K range, this new Operator 640 from Armorside is impressive. Build quality is very good. They rate the recoil up to 50 cal. I don't have a 50 cal, I didn't test it. But it's done very well in my testing. The way they packaged it, the way the eyepiece is done, for 3.5, 4K, this is a lot of clip-on.
That one, I did play with that one at RMAC, and that one does impress me too.
Yeah, it is quite good. But again, the way they tune the image, there is very low latency when you scan.
Yeah.
And the image is tuned. They're not doing this excessive contrast enhancement. But I could shoot very far with it, and it was showing me what I need to see to shoot something. That kind of makes a big difference. So.
Yeah.
And on the high end of things, which will accept Coop, I do like Envision. They still deliver really good image quality. But again, all these guys who were on the high end, they're right now in the process of switching to different cores. So we're all going to have to wait and see what it looks like.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like them. I just think that their employees need some attitude adjustments. So
that's entirely possible. I know your story. So, there are a lot of companies who don't like me, and I always claim that the employees, they're also assholes because I'm, wonderful and soft and warm-hearted and friendly, and things like that.
Exactly what I think of when I think of you, Elia.
Yeah, that's it, right? So the clip-on that I just started looking at, so it's not a recommendation yet, is this new Leica Colonnox 2. They went a little higher end with this new model. It's a European core. No, first gen was IRA. It's a European core, built-in laser rangefinder. From the little bit of a few days I spent with it for now, I'm very impressed. So, but that remains to be seen. It's not a recommendation until I spend more time with it. Out of general principle, I don't recommend anything unless I have spent enough time with it to be confident.
Correct.
All right, Coop, you need to go to dinner.
I do.
Thank you for joining us. Really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It was definitely great to learn some stuff, talk some shop, and look forward to seeing you guys here in a couple weeks.
Yep.
All right. What are you guys doing in a couple of weeks?
I don't know
Shot
what we're
show.
doing. I don't.
Shot
what?
show.
Oh yeah, shot show.
Oh yeah.
That's a couple weeks, fellas. That's a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah. It's like more than a month. I'm going hunting before that and work stuff and everything. I'm going to be in Vegas 2 times before SHOT Show.
Yeah. Well,
All right,
I'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. We'll
Hey,
talk
fellas.
later. Thanks, Coop.
Sounds good. Thanks, boys.
All right. Take care. Alrighty. That was good. I like Coop, nice guy.
Dude, that dude is in a
let's see.
that
So
dude's in a cold tent.
What did you say?
I said that guy's in a cold tent. You see his breath?
Well, it's winter. He's in Colorado at altitude,
Yep, should be good.
So here's a question that was earlier on that I wanted to say. So from Lee. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you saying that the Steinus 235 Gen 2 is the least expensive clip-on worth getting. If that is the case, why is the thermal clip-on worse than a Steinus 235 Gen 2A? Bad idea. Put another way, if there's a hard budget of, say, $1,000, arbitrary. So, okay, that's actually an interesting point. The simple answer, it's not so much that the $1,000 one is a bad idea. It's just that the performance difference is going to be so stark that just save a few nickels and buy one, right? So if you're talking between $1,000 and $4,000, yeah, it's a big price difference. Between $1,000 and $1,800, yeah, it's money. but the performance difference is just substantial. And the catch is that on most of the ones, granted, I have not messed with the DNTs too much, but the $1,000 stuff, if I remember, was not great either. At $1,000, it's not just low resolution. Everything else is going to be, to put mildly, second rate. Not all lenses are created equal. Not all cores are created equal. Guess what happens when they manufacture these things, right? You want to go buy a core, it's going to be grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, etc. Guess what goes into $1,000 clip-on, the grade 4? Okay. It's not just low resolutions, usually just not even on a per pixel basis, it's not going to be as good. Same goes for lenses, everything else. Prices of thermals keep on going down, but I have not yet seen anything for $1,000 that's worth buying, especially again if you can pick this thing up for $1,800. So that's the basic arithmetic.
They're just looking on Euro. I think they've bumped the price again. It's at 1,900.
1,900 now. Yeah, so they probably sold some and they're beginning to bump the price again. And if it goes back up to 3,000, it's going to be a different conversation, right? But we'll see. So, okay, that's an interesting question. Do you know of any cooled EU-made thermals, so not ITAR restricted, available to normal civilians? So still yes, only for now. So there are cooled thermals made in Germany, France, and Israel. But the catch is that the moment you get it into the United States, they're still going to be ITAR restricted, right? It doesn't have to be made by a U.S. company to be ITAR restricted. The moment it hits U.S. soil, it's ITAR restricted. So you may be able to buy one, but you'll have issues importing it, right? And you may have some issues keeping it. And if you import it, you can't take it out. I don't know if this guy's in Europe or here, but in Europe, all this stuff is also very heavily restricted as military technology. So, and ITAR restriction doesn't mean made in the US. If it hits the ground here, it's restricted. What else is there? All right, Mr. Cutbucket just showed up. Still the best username on Facebook. And I'm not Texas enough to know what your y'all means, really. Anybody have any insight?
Apparently, I'm not Texas enough either.
I'm not from Texas, so I don't know.
All right, Mr. Sig is in Norway. So I don't know what Norway regulations are. But like I said, there's uncooled stuff made in France and Israel and Germany. But I have not seen them available for civilian sales. So they do have their own regulations.
There is that Estonian company, Falcon Claw, making. They're using an eye-ray. If we remember, we looked at that. Right. So if you're in Norway, you might look at Falcon Claw or one of those others.
But he's asking about cooled.
Oh, right. Like sorry, cooled.
Yeah, those are
after our conversation. Isn't the cooled thermal much more expensive?
A lot more.
Okay, yeah.
So for a cooled thermal, you are looking. I actually don't know how much it costs in the civilian market, but you can. A cooled thermal rifle scope can easily set you back $40,000 or so. 40. All right, guys, we're 2 hours, so we're gonna wrap up. Any last questions from the two of you about thermals?
With that Cronus, the Athlon that you have on your desk, do you like it?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's quite nice. So it's made by Guide Infrared in China, right? Okay. Just slightly relabeled Guide, but it's pretty well done. It's a nice thermal. It has long battery life. User interface is pretty good. One of the reasons that many people like these things, so they set these things up like they're turrets, right? So this is digital zoom. It's all external. No, mind this side. This is digital zoom. It's all external. This thing you can press and rotate. So a lot of the controls are relatively straightforward and a lot of external controls. Image focus, powers here on the eyepiece. It's a pretty decent user interface. And again, it talks to an app and all sort of stuff, but it's a Chinese app, so it's probably stealing your data, sending it back to China. all the usual stuff.
I mean, the NSA's still in it and just selling it to them, so same thing.
Pretty much. But, it's pretty decent. It does work. When I first got it, it was less expensive. Now I think it's a little bit more expensive again.
Which model was it?
That's a 5640, I think. So, but it's good resolution. It's good lens. It has good image quality. I have really no qualms about it. Again, I'm more of a clip-on guy, but I have a couple of guns where this conventional rifle scope factor, it works very, very well, and I use the Athlon very comfortably. It works nicely, nice device. No complaints whatsoever. Again, very, very good for the money. Okay. So, it's one of those things, if I'm spending my own money, what would I buy? And it's a very, very good question because, when I talk about this, most of the time I'm spending your money, not mine. If I only had one again, I'd basically save up some cash and buy an N-Vision and be done with it. But again, now everything is changing.
So you talk about how the higher end ones are beginning to change their cores. So do you suggest waiting a little bit, or do you suggest just picking up something now?
So if you are new to thermal and you do not mind buying a non-US device, I would not wait. If you're okay buying a Chinese one, buy an Athlon or a Steiner or something like that. Again, clip-ons have downsides. I still like clip-ons because I like the flexibility and I'm paranoid and these are electronic devices, batteries die, you're dead, I want a conventional optic on my gun. Do I have a really good justification for it? No, other than general paranoia, no. But I like clip-ons, right? If you need a thermal now, you just don't buy a low-spec one. Don't buy a 384. I know you're not going to be happy. Buy a decent 640 with a 35, the lens somewhere in the 35 to 50 millimeter range, and go shoot with it. You might like it and fall in love with the technology and use it forever. Or you might curse my name and sell it at a loss and never touch thermal again. I don't know. But until you spend some time with it, you won't quite know. You kind of have to go through the exercise, setting it up, making sure it's all properly lined up and working and everything, and then you'll be golden. If you know how people say, go buy once, cry once, and go buy something very expensive, right? Yeah, it's usually a stupid idea. Don't spend $8,000 on something you don't fully understand.
That makes sense.
You know how many people I've seen at the range with an Accuracy International and a Schmidt and Bender on it that can hit the broadside of the barn from inside the barn?
Yeah.
Like when somebody comes to me and says, I want to go shoot the PRS competition, should I go and buy a tangent theta, let's say? As much as I've tangent, my answer is always no. And I have 4 tangents, and that's what I shoot with. But my answer is still no. Don't. Go buy something like that Delta Javelin that you have there, Aaron.
Yeah, I need to put it on a gun. I've been lazy.
Yeah, you really should. So something along those lines, go buy a Tico, something like that, put it in the gun, go shoot. After doing this for a little while, you'll figure out what works, what doesn't. After that, if you want to buy a $6,000 tangent, go for it. Right? But the whole buy once, cry once is complete nonsense.
Yeah, I've been doing this game for a long time, and I've had a tangent, and I couldn't justify a tangent again, right? And again, that's personal preference. The reticle's just too thin for my eyes. But again, I haven't shot. I had LASIK done. So when I come visit you, we'll take it out and we'll go play with it.
Sure. Look, if I had to pay for them, I would still own at least one tangent. I probably wouldn't have 4, but I would still they agree with my eyes remarkably well. But I will say this: the hunting scope, the long range hunter, it's the one I just took to Montana on the mule deer hunt, just amazing, and that's a thicker reticle. So I might actually shoot that in some hunter matches. Everybody's gonna make fun of me because they'll say it's too thick, but I think it's gonna be fine.
it's personal preference and what gear works for you. What
Exactly
works
right.
for someone else doesn't always work for you. So use what you want, what you're comfortable
And, you
with.
know, I would do our last local match of the year is this coming Sunday, so I'm gonna go shoot. So I had my dad's in the hospital and all sort of stuff, all sorts of issues. Right, I had a half hour on the way there, so I was stopped by the range, pulled out my rifle with a Tangent 735 on it. It's still amazing. Zero still hasn't shifted. I have it on the fix, right? The way that thing is set up. Through all the different matches flying around and all sorts of shit, still have for a year have not had to adjust zero. Still the same. Still works. Still awesome. Go figure. There's something to say about all that consistency.
I agree.
All right, gentlemen. Did I give you enough food for thought?
Yeah.
That was
Excellent.
awesome. Like that was a mix of really in depth and then some, some
Practical.
more consumer level
Yeah.
information. But it definitely set my thoughts on a very different path than what I was thinking.
Oh, very good. Excellent. All righty. So for all of you watching this not in real time, if anything we said here was thought-provoking, something I did not address, something you think Aaron should have asked, something that Hayden should have asked but was too shy, put it in the comments, and I'll address it the best I can. Whether the question is for me or for Coop, let me know, and I'll get it to Coop if it comes to that. Okay. Thank you all, and have a good night.
Thanks. See ya.
And